Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Cynthia Clark, intuitive life coach and hand analyst and tarot expert. And welcome to my brand new video series on Heartbreak to Happiness. This is the first video, and today we're going to be talking about how to tell if you're still traumatized from your heartbreak. And this is a very deep topic and one that I don't take lightly. I actually went through a pretty serious heartbreak myself a few years ago where I was married for 19 years and it all fell apart on me, and it was an extremely traumatizing experience. So I understand that sometimes you feel like you just don't have anywhere to turn, and I want you to know that that is not true. There are lots of resources out there to help you get through this difficult time. So I want to just go over 13 different areas where you may or may not realize that you still have trauma, and I do believe that heartbreak brings on a trauma that needs to be healed, regardless of whether you were the one to break off the relationship or if your partner was the one to break off the relationship. It doesn't matter, because this is definitely something that is going to create an energetic stress, and it needs to be healed before you can move back into happiness. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, the number one thing, is that if you're still alone, then you probably still have trauma. So pay attention to, and it's not just with a partner, but a lot of times when you're traumatized, you might even isolate yourself from your friends or your family as well. So pay attention to that. Are you alone, or do you feel like you're alone? Okay. The second one is that you're not dating anymore. Okay. You've become reclusive. You've decided to just bye. I don't want to be in this dating game anymore, and I'm finished. And that's actually not, if you've been in a relationship, you know that it can be really rewarding. And you got to get back on the horse. That's all there is to it. So that's number two. Number three is your current partner is just as bad as your last partner. Okay, now this can happen easily, where you're still holding the same energetic vibration and you attract the same type of person because you're still trying to learn that lesson. So until you learn that lesson, you're going to keep repeating patterns in your life, and this shows up in all sorts of ways. And it definitely shows up in the hands as well. So we're going to be getting into a few things that you can look at in your hands. But if you're repeating a pattern, chances are you may not even recognize it, and you may think that this new person is, different, or it's, I went into a rebound relationship after my marriage, and it was a disaster. And the things that I put up with were just pretty incredible. But it's because I was still traumatized and I hadn't learned yet. So, don't feel bad about this. Everybody goes through this, and it's okay. But I just want you to recognize it. Okay, so number four, you're still angry at your ex. This is not a good thing if you're still holding on to anger, and anger does show up in a couple of places in the hands, and I want to show it to you here in a drawing. There's this thing called a Neptune ring that shows up at the bottom part of your hand, and there's also a line called a Mars challenge that can show up as well. So here's a picture of a hand. Neptune is down here at the bottom part of the hand. It's right in between what we call Venus, which is over here, and Luna, which is over here. Neptune is right in the middle. Okay, so if you have this little ring that's showing up, chances are you've got some unresolved anger. This line here is a minor line. It's called a Mars challenge line. It runs from the thumb area, just above the thumb area, all the way across the hand into what we call Pluto. And that area really represents, you're wanting to heal and release something. You're wanting to transform something. So if you have that in your hand, that is a sure sign that you've got some anger issues that you need to deal with. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is number 5, and you have a new health issue. Okay, so when I went through my divorce, I got vertigo for 9 months. I woke up one morning very sick. It felt like I drank 2 bottles of wine, and I was just throwing up, and the room was spinning so bad I couldn't see straight. It was incredible. And I'm not kidding you, this came out of nowhere, or so I thought, that I was going through my divorce at the time. And 19 years is a long time to be married to the same person. So I, of course, had to get some help with that, and I couldn't even drive a car for a month. It was really, really scary. I needed to travel by plane. I was wondering if I'd even be able to do that. I mean, basically my life just went completely still at that point. And I knew, you know what, I got to heal some major trauma here. And the doctors pretty much said, well, you got to just wait it out, because it's one of those things that they don't really have a cure for. It's simply, it was an emotional trauma. So, pay attention to health issues that come up, because it may not be as dramatic as that, but illness is trying to redirect you, and it's trying to give you, it's showing you where you need to heal. Okay, so that was my experience. Okay, so number 6, you constantly talk about your past. Okay, so if you are talking about your experiences with your ex, and you're just, whether they're good or bad, by the way, if you're stuck in your past, you're going to just be talking about your past, and that means you still have a trauma to heal, because we live, the only place where you have power is in the present. So take a look at your conversations and how do they play out. That's really important. Number 7, you're struggling in other areas of your life. Okay, so this may not be so obvious, but you may think you've moved on. You may think, oh yeah, my life is great. I'm so glad I got rid of that heartbreak and that ex-partner. I'm doing so well. And maybe you are in some areas, but maybe there's one area that's really not doing so well. Chances are you still need to heal some trauma. So pay attention to all the different areas of your life. Pay attention to your career. Do you love your job? Pay attention to your health. Pay attention to your friends, your family. Pay attention to your living conditions. All of these things play out in your life. And if you're not really happy, you may think you've moved on, but maybe you haven't yet. Okay, number 8. You have no clear plan of the future. Okay, so a lot of times when we run into a trauma, especially a heartbreak trauma, that's a major deal, because you had a plan to be with this person for the rest of your life, and suddenly it gets wiped out from under you, and suddenly you have no idea what's going on. Where are you going? What are you doing? This can show up in the hands, by the way, in your thumb. Okay, so pay attention to horizontal lines that run through the middle part of your thumb. Okay, so right here, you'll have horizontal lines. And minor lines come and go, okay? So all the lines that I'm talking about right now, just pay attention to those because they can appear and disappear as you heal or don't heal from your trauma. Okay, but that really says that you're stuck in, you're not sure what direction you're going to go in. Okay, number 9, you've picked up some bad habits. Maybe it's drinking, maybe it's smoking, those are the obvious ones. But maybe it's something less obvious, like maybe you're just watching more TV than you ever have before, or suddenly you're not exercising, or you're not enjoying, you're not taking care of yourself. I mean, you're going to know what that means for you. Number 10, you no longer enjoy activities that you used to. So if there was something that you used to do all the time, like maybe you used to ride your bike, or maybe you used to take walks in the woods, and suddenly you just aren't even finding that enjoyable anymore. That's a trauma, okay? Number 11, you're depressed. You have mood swings, okay? This can happen. Again, that Neptune ring that I mentioned before, that also applies to sadness. Okay, so this little guy down here at the bottom part of your hand, that can apply to rage or grief. Another good way to tell if you have some excess sadness that needs to be healed in your hand is your overall hand is going to have a bluish color. Okay, so you want to pay attention, especially in the Venus mount, which is this part, your thumb ball region, okay, right by your thumb. You want to pay attention to that. Okay, number 12, your sleeping patterns have changed. Okay, so if you suddenly are getting up early in the morning where you never did before, or maybe you're just not sleeping as much, or maybe you're sleeping too much, those are indicators of trauma that needs to heal. And number 13, you romanticize the past. Okay, this can happen a lot where you really look at the things that were, they weren't good. Okay, but you turn it into like, oh, well, it was so great when we did this or that, and you end up looking at it more like it was better than it actually was. This can happen, and it can totally keep you from moving forward if you're still hung up on that relationship and you're not seeing things objectively. So these are the 13 things that I personally feel are a trauma. They show that you still have healing to do. It's okay. Wherever you are past that relationship, you can heal these things. Okay, so that's the good news. So in my next video, we're going to take a look at a particular indicator of a common trauma, and we're going to identify it in the hands. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.